Welcome to the Salesforce Business Analyst Virtual Trailhead Community Group. You are here today for our panel on Have BA Skills Will Travel. But first, we have some housekeeping items. The meeting will be recorded, edited, and posted on YouTube, presumably sometime in 2026, maybe even right after the Christmas holiday. Work is going to kind of chill out a little bit for me, so maybe I will take that as, all right, time to get that YouTube channel current. But expect it'll be there at some point. Our acceptance criteria for today is chat, and we will do our best to keep up, but do not spam the chat. Please keep it along the lines of what is happening in the session. Raise your hand if you want to speak, because we do have a lot of panelists. We want to make sure that that they are heard. Mute yourselves otherwise. I'm going to turn on the Q&A right now. So if there are any questions that come up over the course of this session, please feel free to leverage the Q&A so that your great question doesn't just scroll on by in the chat. And keep an eye for pin posts at the top. If anybody says something particularly profound or informative, we will do our best to pin it to the top of the chat. Our agenda today, we're going to do some introductions. Our panel on Have BA Skills Will Travel. With the kind of Q&A throughout. I don't know, maybe it's a / Q&A. Talk a little bit about some Salesforce BA news and opportunities, and then we're going to give away 3 certifications with snowman races. I have doled out $24 to some unnamed tech company that does animated snowman races, and we're going to benefit from that today. Then we will turn the recording off for the last bit of this session so we can talk about celebrations or complaining or just what we're going to do for the holidays. We'll see where it goes. I am Vanessa Grant, who is now signed up for the Agentforce Specialist exam exactly at the last minute. While it is still free, it was one of those, like, I don't know if anybody's ever heard the Mitch Hedberg joke about, like, I had a friend ask me if I wanted a frozen banana, and I didn't want a frozen banana, but I might want a banana later. So I said, yeah. And that's kind of how I feel about this Agentforce exam, is I don't want to go through this Agentforce exam now, but I also don't want to pay for it later. So here we go, while it's still free. Pay, over to you. I'm glad you like my joke, I could see.
I love it. You know, frozen banana is going to be the phrase of 2025 for me. Hi, everyone. My name is Payman Lim. I am the co-lead for this group with the wonderful Vanessa. I really enjoyed doing this. So as you can see there, you can read. I have been around for a long time doing projects. And I've got 3 books. I need to practice plugging my books. 3 books: Salesforce Discovery, Successful Salesforce Projects, Salesforce Consulting. And if you love me and you love my book, drop me an Amazon review. That's all I'm going to say. I will now pass it to who's next, Vanessa?
If I can manage to progress slides. There we go. Okay, so we are going to introduce all of our panelists, let them introduce themselves one by one, and then when we actually start moving on to the actual panel, kind of a weird, awkward transition, kind of how I live my life. Then we'll go more into their journeys. But for now, each panelist, if you could please introduce yourself, starting with Paul.
Cool. I think so. I'm Paul. I think at this stage you just want me to say I'm Paul. I am an ADHD life coach. I used to be a Salesforce administrator and snuck in towards the end as a business analyst.
Welcome, Paul.
Hi, my turn. So my name is Kristyna Turner, or Chris for shorter, and I'm currently lead the marketing technology practice at Floor, which is a consulting company in Sydney. And I've been involved in a Salesforce community. I've been on and off. So I guess this is what's going to be about.
Excellent. Ashley?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Douglas. I am a change enablement and learning strategist. I do contract and freelance work in that field. I'm in Los Angeles, California, and I'm excited to talk with everybody today.
Sorry, I hit my mute button. Didn't mean to make it awkward. All right. So we are ready to start our panel, and that's why I made it awkward, because I was like, I should kind of split my screen here. All right. Okay, so I have a slide here. If anybody's interested, sorry, it's a little like it's very extreme on my screen right now. But if anybody wants to connect with these folks on LinkedIn, I'm gonna leave these up, and let's get started with the actual panel stuff. So we spend a lot of time in this ecosystem talking about how to break into the ecosystem, how to get your next Salesforce role, how to leverage those transferable skills, which is going to be important no matter what. But I don't know that I've ever seen a discussion about what happens when we are interested in expanding beyond the Salesforce ecosystem, either moving into a new role entirely or expanding just beyond the Salesforce ecosystem, so like different technology platforms. And while this isn't necessarily about leaving Salesforce, I think it's about, let's talk about what does it look like when your career maybe isn't perfectly mapped out, and talk about business analysis and how foundationally those skills are useful in lots of different roles. So all three of our panelists have spent a lot of time in the Salesforce ecosystem, veterans, and then they've taken their work in different directions. And I would say none of those paths were straight lines. They may correct me on that. But to start us off, I would like to ask each panelist how you originally came into the Salesforce ecosystem, your experience with BA work, and what you love best about business analysis, and what led you towards the work that you are in now. Let's start with Paul, since he is on the screen first.
Thanks. Yeah, really appreciate that. I love this public talking thing, sort of. I've just got one. Yeah, is it just going to pick up one point? I think you corrected yourself later, but you said is anyone's. You mentioned about the career being mapped out. Just going to plant a seed regarding this concept. If you are the person with your career mapped out, congratulations for winning the lottery. That's my attitude on it, and that's kind of the dirty secret that we think that there's a plan. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the other panelists say that there's a plan. We will hear. But that's my perspective. That's a hint as to my perspective. Right. Who am I? There's a lot of questions you threw at me.
Sorry. I did. Just give
me
me the 2-minute how you got in and how you got out, and what you like about business analysis somewhere in there. If you could just throw it.
Okay. Got you. Okay, so I can do that. Possibly less than 2 minutes. I was doing IT. I was one of the few from an original IT background, which I had very much struggled to get into. And once I was there, I was like, shit, I'm there. And then I was like, okay, this is all quite samey now. And then a friend introduced me to Salesforce, and I spent a weekend doing formulas, and then I didn't look back. I just said, oh, give me some more of this work. And so that was 2011-ish, give or take. 20 and maybe even 2010, who knows. And I did that for many years, and the ecosystem involved, there was other consultancies doing business analysis, but as an external thing, it wasn't kind of part of the in-house Salesforce toolkit. But after a while, if you've got curiosity, you do ask the question, why and what is this about? What are you trying to achieve here? And that's the question that followed me for my IT days. It was a sense of curiosity, not just doing what people ask, but trying to understand why they're doing it. Because what someone asks, what someone means, and what someone wants are three entirely separate things. And with ADHD coaching, which I'm now in, so I discovered I was ADHD, and I was looking to get out of the Salesforce ecosystem anyway, because I was working in the nonprofit sector. And there the science has been very clear for about the last 5 years that that's not a point of interest for Salesforce. And well, we'll come on to it later, but that curiosity, like what's going on here, is the thing, what you're saying. I didn't know this was a crucial coaching quality, but my God, does it put me in very good stead just to check what's actually going on, basically. Shall I pass the stick back to Vanessa?
I am printing my questions so that I can deal with my, sorry, pardon my printer there. I'm dealing with I've never done a panel facilitation before challenges. So over to Kristyna, who can.
Of course. So I first encountered Salesforce actually as a business user, and it was at that time when the Lightning was launched. And I thought, wow, that's actually really powerful tool if it's used well. So then I changed platform for a while to HubSpot. So I work with HubSpot for a while and other platforms. And I really got into Salesforce with my job as a business analyst at PwC. And when I moved into a Salesforce business analyst role at PwC, I loved being a translator, turning messy business reality into something that it's actually structured, that it's buildable and usable. And for me, business analyst work was never about writing, a perfect user stories. It was about the clarity. And over time, I started to work on a global project where the challenges went beyond a single platform. Salesforce was still important, but it was not, but the work increasingly involved multiple tools and ecosystems. And when one project moved away from Salesforce, it pushed me to broaden my focus. And that shift ultimately led me into marketing practice leadership, where I am now.
Awesome. Ashley, you want to tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career thinking I was going to be a TV news anchor or a radio show host because I loved researching the facts and telling stories. But then my career took me towards becoming a full-time fitness instructor. And that was really great. I also got involved with teaching a social and behavioral skill to fifth grade students. But fitness can be tough on the body. So I eventually moved into a full-time corporate role working for actually a nonprofit, and that nonprofit adopted Salesforce, and they moved all of their data, everything into Salesforce, and they needed an admin. And so I'm the classic accidental admin who joined in 10 years ago, starting using Salesforce, learned a lot, but it ended up bringing together all of that experience that I had from teaching and from storytelling and digging deeper, just like Paul was saying earlier, digging deeper into understanding and having that curiosity. And then I found myself surrounded by this wonderful group of people who really saw a lot of those skills coming together. And I got into a consulting company, a boutique consulting company, where they were like, you could be a business analyst. You ask the right questions. You know how to connect the dots for people. You know how to help them communicate their needs in a way that they can't always do themselves. And so that's really when my BA role took off. But along the way, I ended up figuring out, yeah, I do love that stuff, but I really love the teaching and the training aspect a little bit more. And that same network that I was supported by ended up opening the door for me to move into learning and development. And that's really where I found a lot of my joy in the work that I do, is stepping into creating learning experiences and designing those opportunities for people to connect the dots for themselves and grow their skill sets and career paths. And what I learned along the way was that I don't have to exclusively do that related to Salesforce, that there's a lot of potential to help people with their careers, no matter what they're using or what path they want to follow. And sometimes they just need help opening up the doors and realizing what skills they have and how they can transfer to other opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, folks, I'm going to take this slide down so we can focus on your lovely faces while you're speaking. So let's start off with, and no pressure for the entire panel to answer everything, just answer what makes sense for you. And if I say something and we get crickets, I'll just move on to a question that we feel more excited about. So which business analysis skills turned out to be most transferable once you moved into different roles or industries?
I can jump in since I'm off mute already. For me, it was a lot of that discovery and asking good questions. What I found is that when you're building any kind of a learning experience, when you're leaning into the training and change side of things, understanding where people are, the personas, understanding the different processes, really asking questions about the situation that you're in transfers to anything that you're going to do. That level of curiosity is so important.
Cool, I've got some. So breaking down complex issues into manageable solutions. So normally with ADHD, so things I'm going to say relate to ADHD and neurodivergency, they also relate to other people. They're just more extreme with ADHD. And sometimes you get complete overwhelm, but the clients often can't articulate what they want. But when you drill down and ask them questions and break it into small chunks, this is amazing. And suddenly the impossible is achievable. And that's a core part of coaching, is to get into that. But it's also a core part of business analysis when you're doing the story points and all that sort of thing. So I think that's been great training for me in that regards. There's one big difference that I find. So I wanted to highlight that, is that in coaching, you let the client come up with the solution themselves. If they own the solution, they feel empowered by it. And normally the client does have the answers, but we reframe it and we take it from them. Actually, we disempower them by doing that. So I think and also for the consultant, it doesn't look good if you say, well, these are the answers you gave me. These are the answers that senior management didn't want to hear a few months ago. We've now spent a lot of money requirements gathering, and here's the answers that all the juniors knew and didn't want to tell, and no one else was listening to them. The paradigm in coaching is completely shifted because the client owns the whole journey. The contract is between the client and the coach. So it's a very different dynamic, and actually it's enriching and empowering because it gives the client confidence going forward that they have the skills, rather than actually some of the stuff we do disempowers them for reasons beyond our control sometimes. But until I was doing my prep work for this presentation, for this talk, I hadn't quite realized what's going on. So if I could revisit my old self, I might frame what I'm doing differently, in that, yes, you've got the answers. I'm here to change them into the technical requirements and to break it down to make it manageable. So that's probably how I would revisit it if I had that second opportunity.
That's awesome. All right. So
I have one.
Oh yeah, go for it. Well, hold on.
Oh,
Samir, we're gonna keep it on the panel for right now. But if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to throw it onto the Q&A, and happy to bring them up.
no problem. Sorry.
Thank you.
No,
all good. Thank you. All right. So moving into kind of some of the letting go aspects, and I feel like it's really tough, especially with the Salesforce community being so tight knit. Did you ever worry about moving away from Salesforce? Meaning that you end up losing credibility or starting over without kind of that network around you?
I can start with this one. So yes, there was definitely a moment when I worried, that moving away from Salesforce, but any kind of community or any kind of the area of the work, that can mean losing credibility or having to prove yourself again and again. But what helped me was realize that the credibility actually comes from how you think about the processes and how you solve the problems, and not from a specific tool that you're basically using.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that it absolutely was scary to move away something that I've built a whole career on for 10 years and then step into my first role outside of Salesforce was actually a medical device that was a life-saving item for people who receive insulin for diabetes. And so that's scary to go from this complete shift into a whole nother world, learning a lot about medical regulations and all of those pieces. But the piece of advice that I kept giving myself was, I learned Salesforce. I can learn this too. There was a time when I didn't know anything. I didn't even know Salesforce existed. And now I know this. So giving yourself that kind of confidence to remember you can do it too.
Linda, if you have a question, if you could throw it into the Q&A.
Oh, no, I just had an addendum comment. Is that okay?
If you could just throw it in the Q&A for right now. I just want to make sure that we can focus on the panelists, if that's all right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. No problem. I won't comment. It was just a piggyback of Ashley. When you want to, let me know when you want me to tell you.
Cool. Thanks.
No worries. Good.
Cool. For me, I got it entirely wrong. Hands up, got it entirely wrong. I thought I was going on this training course, like 50% of my time. I knew how much that training course was approximately going to take. I thought, transition gently out, transition gently in, roll off my clients, roll on my clients. It'll, get the money, keep on coming in. This is all good. I found I couldn't context switch. That was the big thing. It was even though there are some core concepts the same, the weight of lifting up the Salesforce orgs and getting back into that headspace of knowing and holding all those different processes was a nightmare. So very rapidly, the more complex orgs I shifted away from and offloaded to other people. The really simple ones I managed to keep, but those are the very simple ones which don't require any thinking about because I've done literally the same stuff for 10 years. But what I've realized is I still love engaging with the community. These are still my friends. I know Pay, I know Vanessa. I've come across Kristyna before because Check Dreaming is absolutely effing awesome. In fact, I'm going to go to Check Dreaming again next year, even though there's no return on benefit for me. I love doing the education aspect, and so many of my world are neurodivergent. So many of the people that I speak to are neurodivergent or have neurodivergent family and friends. To do the education aspect with all the things I now know is a real pleasure and a privilege. So I'm going to get a holiday in Czech. It'll sharpen my skills on doing something relevant in terms of presentation, because I ain't going to go there unless I, hopefully present. But it's still my family. Yes, it is more distant than it used to be, is the honest answer. But the movers, like the people that do the thoughts and expand your thinking, they still expand my thinking. The challenges are real. The core threads in everyone's lives are still real. So that's the pleasure that still connects me. And I'm happy to have Salesforce friends from the ecosystem. And also, when I transitioned, the question was, what can you focus on? What's your USP? And this is like when I came to Salesforce, they said, what's your USP? I said, I'm a generalist. And they said, no, that's not going to work. So in Salesforce, I focused on doing nonprofits. So my special is that if I say I'm an ADHD coach, then I'm vaguely of interest to everyone, but I'm not sparking anyone's curiosity. I say that I'm a ADHD life coach for tech people. It's a small niche crowd, but it gives me a standout point. So it's not about me selling the ADHD, it's thinking about what roles are you doing now? Where's the experience threads that you can pull and shift and take with you? So you're not just throwing all that experience away. Although I love I think it was actually, I can't even remember now. I lived my ADHD as well. What's the point? The point being, you've done a transition before, you've learned something before, you can learn it again. So that's what Ashley's taken. So I think everyone's got those threads that when you're doing the transitions, for me, it's about going back to my values. With neurotypicals, it tends to be going back to priorities and other things. Neurodivergent people tend to go back to values. And so those are the things that I can learn and take with me into the future. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'll expand that at some point, hopefully.
All good. And folks, just as a reminder, if you have questions for the panel, please feel free to throw them in Q&A. And if there's actual commentary, definitely use the chat sparingly. That is what it is there for. And I'm sure at the end we can open up the floor a little bit more and see what questions come in. But definitely happy to hear about other people's experiences. But if we could keep that in the chat for right now. I would like to. Well, also one thing I did hear, and you guys can let me know if I'm going to be a BA and validate what I'm hearing, but it sounds like you haven't felt like you had to kind of leave your friend group behind and move on to a new pasture, that you can still be involved in the community, but still expand your role into other areas. And then how did you know the difference between discomfort that meant this is new versus this isn't right for me? Because there's so many different ways that we can expand our careers, either different platforms or just different roles entirely. How did you know what fit versus, oh, I'm uncomfortable because I don't know this as well as what I've been doing?
Yeah, I have a great book recommendation in that regard. If anybody has read The Dip by Seth Godin, highly recommend that. Yeah, it is a great book that helps you to figure out the difference between, in all experiences that we have, you're going to be going along this path and it's going to get hard. That's just facts about life. And you're going to go through a dip. And you need to understand if it's difficult because you're going in a dip and it's going to come back up and you'll be successful again, or distinguish if it's what he calls a cul-de-sac, meaning that you're just spinning and you're not advancing anywhere. You're just twirling in the same spot. And so I think that kind of puts a good language around the ways that I've been able to use that in my own life, deciding if it is something where it's what I call a bar that is just out of reach, where I can almost put my fingertips on it and reach it. And I know it's an attainable goal. It's a stretch goal, but it's an attainable goal. And I want to reach for that bar, versus something that is so far out of my grasp that it's going to actually hurt me, whether that's physically, emotionally, mentally, in the long run, to keep chasing that. So it's taking a pause and doing that kind of self-assessment of figuring out if this is something that you actually want to achieve, and pushing yourself a little harder is going to get you to the other side, or if you're just going to hurt yourself in the process and you would be better off using that energy for something more productive that is going to progress you further.
Yeah, great. And look, I guess the difference also becomes clearer with experience and a few wrong turns, so with experience, I actually learn to recognize the difference, and the new discomfort still feels energizing underneath the fear, but you're stretched and curious. And when something isn't right, the discomforts feel heavy and draining and repetitive. And also it's not motivating anymore.
Nothing further to add. No, those are both amazing. For me, I just took a gamble. I did some research, but I just took a gamble. I did not know. But to be honest, I was at the point where I really wanted to leave the ecosystem. And I knew it was not bringing me joy. So the risk was something that was not bringing me joy versus the alternative. And I learned things en route, even if I didn't become a coach. I would have learned. So it was a topic of interest to me anyway. So I guess that's the benefit. But what the other two said about feeling it and learning the difference, but also giving things a try. Always think, so I have applicants. One of my key questions that I ask myself is, what's the worst that could happen? Is a pink fire-breathing dragon going to come and eat me alive? If the answer is no, if you think about it as the abyss, it's horrible. But if you then say, what's the actual worst that's going to happen? Then you can start to go, well, actually, and then you can start to do a comparison exercise on it. Well, listening to your gut, that's the most important part.
Well, Paul, let's dig into your journey a little bit. So you went from an admin to BA, you were consultant, and you started talking about how it didn't spark joy, so you had to Marie Kondo and let it go. But what part of the work stopped feeling aligned for you?
So I was working in the non-profit sector, and I think probably certainly at the start of COVID, 2021, maybe even a little bit earlier, there wasn't the investment in the non-profit community, and that's where my passion is. But also I started to see repeated patterns in the non-profit community and I don't object to those patterns of people trying to do things on shoestring budgets when it's not going to work out, because sometimes it does work out. But I regard it as oils going down a kitchen sink. Sometimes it's all smooth. If the flow is right, it doesn't matter if there's a bit of grit, it can flush away. But sometimes it just builds up and you just need a complete change. And for me, for many years, it had been free flowing, and that's great. But after a while, it's like, no, this just isn't for me. This isn't where I'm getting joy from anymore. And I can't remember. There were silly things going on about discounts, and I can't remember. There was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes in Salesforce, and I was hearing about it. And there was a lot of mis-selling. I was hearing about. It's kind of come out in the wash that you can tell that Salesforce doesn't give the same love anymore to nonprofits. So when you see the signs, start looking. Doesn't do any harm to keep your eyes open.
So did you consciously end up moving into more purpose-driven work, or was that something that once you started doing it and it started fulfilling you, that's when you knew that you were moving in, that you had moved into it?
No, it was, I didn't realize how much joy I'd get from it. Like, it's really strange for me that I'd do things on systems which would actually affect tens of thousands of people, and it would be great for 3 days. And that joy would just, like, tens of thousands of people, I've made their lives 3 seconds easier every day. That's a lot of time. I could run the numbers, you know, and they were less frustrated, the staff were happier. But it, this doesn't answer the question. I'm going to go there anyway. But the work that I do now, I work one-on-one with individuals, and I can know that the impact that I'm having will help them for the rest of their lives, will change the rest of their lives, because they have the answers themselves and just unlocking it. And that's hugely rewarding. When I came out of the Salesforce ecosystem, the trouble was it wasn't intentional. My transition wasn't intentional. It was only midway through the course I realized I couldn't do both. So you've got a vision, and then you can either go one way, which is back to where you were, or you can continue in the new direction. And I decided to continue in the new direction. So it wasn't a phase thing, as I had a black and white choice over which question. But for me, am I going to get into Agentforce? Like, I know I've never been a coder. I know that I didn't even like Flow. I'd always filled me with trepidation. I now don't, and I had to do it, but it always filled me with fear because I click buttons quite a lot, and I don't always read the detail, and I'm playing with systems, and I got away with it, and I'd always regarded myself as getting away with it. Now what I do, the person actually the person checks for themselves whether they're working on themselves. There's a self-checking thing. It's more aligned. I could get away with it. This is more aligned to what I do, but I had that choice, and the choice was so blindingly obviously clear to me. And if it didn't work out, I could always go back to Salesforce. Mm-hmm. So it's like, so what I did was I said, have I got enough money for 18 months to do this transition? And I'm still, and that's the place where I'm at. I'm coming towards the end of that period, because there was only a couple of years, it feels like a lot longer. It was a couple of years ago that I actually started to make that change. But I ran the numbers like any good business analysis. I ran the numbers and said, what's the alternatives? What's the pros? What's the cons? Is this sustainable? Have we got a budget? What's the time frame? What's the product? No, all the things that business, I didn't say, oh, I'm just going to go at this harder. I did take a very rational approach, but it did come to that point, which I wasn't expecting. It was that crossroads, and then I just had to take the bite. For me, the path was obvious at that point.
I like that. You project managed your transition, and and business analyzed it. Found your value prop. Kristyna, let's poke into your journey a bit more. As you started, it sounds like, taking on more responsibility, did you find that your work transitioned from hands-on to more like advisory, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it definitely shifted towards advisory and strategy, but I intentionally tried to stay on hands and stay close to actually work. I don't need to configure everything myself. I've never actually done, but I need to understand enough to challenge the decisions and spot the risks early, if there are any, and ask uncomfortable questions. And I do like to work with more than one platforms, because it gives me the opportunity to actually get to know other systems a little bit better and compare them between themselves.
Well, speaking of the system, so we've got Salesforce, Viva. You said you'd done HubSpot actually even before you got into the Salesforce ecosystem. So you've got some HubSpot, Adobe. How do you keep up with all of these platforms? And how do you manage to stay sharp on all of these?
Yeah, and Braze, Telium, Bloomreach. So all of these are a part of my portfolio, and that it came from my curiosity. I was curious about the other platforms. It's not easy, I'm not gonna lie, but I don't try to stay expert in everything. Yeah, like I love playing with the different platforms, comparing them, but I would say I try to stay sharp more on the principles and processes. In my case, it's mainly the marketing principles, the customer journeys, the content, the orchestrations. But I stay current on the platforms to ask the right questions to the users, and how the users are actually use them. I need to understand them. And for me, hands-on config, can rust, but the judgment cannot.
And then are you cheating on us with other communities now? Are you in HubSpot communities and Viva communities?
I'd rather not to comment on that. I mean, let's say I love people in general, and I love learning new things. Salesforce community is still our community number one, because I've been in that community for a while, and I met amazing people that basically, empower me every day. Yeah, I would stay with that.
Have you dipped your toes into any other communities? I actually would be curious about that.
I did.
Okay.
I did. Yes.
Okay.
But Salesforce, it's still very
All right.
big one. So yeah, definitely can take it offline, Vanessa.
So Ashley, I would like to ask you, so I know with training and enablement, kind of like with Salesforce Business Analysis, like I find a lot of times people think of it as a soft skill. How do you communicate the value of your skills, whether it's been business analysis or your training and enablement?
Yeah, something that has really helped me in my specific career path has been my network, the group of people that I'm surrounded by. And I call that out specifically because I've been able to go in, they've given me the opportunities to go in and demonstrate what good learning looks like, what thoughtful strategic planning around learning can be, and the outcomes that are profitable and beneficial as a result. So the way that I'm able to communicate the value of it is by having those other people telling my stories as well. So I don't have to go in and say, hey guys, learning is important and here's all the reasons why. I can do that, but having these kinds of other people in my network who are cheering me on, who are sharing the value on my behalf, it adds a little bit more volume to it. It adds a little bit more credibility to it. And so that's been really helpful. So I would say the value of the network that you have is going to help to promote the skills that you have and to showcase them for you as well.
Excellent. Did you find yourself gravitating towards training and enablement while you were still in the Salesforce ecosystem?
Yes. 100%. I always describe my whole career as when I was, a fourth grader and somebody said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said a teacher. And then somehow I got away from doing that in college. And here I am. It's always been the thing that drew me back to any job that I have was teaching, enabling, learning. So I've always been destined to be a teacher. And so when I was working on those different Salesforce projects, even as a business analyst, I would get pulled into conversations where they would say, hey, can you demo this? I got pulled into a ton of demos. And it wasn't necessarily because I was great at presenting. It was because I was able to connect on a way that was leaning more towards I was teaching people as I was communicating with them and showing them whatever the demo was or asking them the questions and explaining why. I was making more connections that way. And then it was a really great opportunity to say, oh, so not only can I be the business analyst on this project, but then I can also be responsible for the training on the other side of it. So it was able to, it gave me a lot of opportunity in the consulting roles that I did to start with the client as the business analyst and to bring the project all the way full circle as the trainer as well. And so then that just was like a natural progression where I got to keep moving towards that training and enjoying what I was doing in that realm.
Did you make a conscious decision to move into learning and enablement, or is it just something where an opportunity presented itself then?
A little bit of both. So I got to the point in my consulting where I was getting more opportunities to lead and develop the training programs. And and they really needed somebody to. They didn't have anybody in my consulting company. It was a very small company when I joined. So they needed somebody to build a program. And I thought, wow, that's great. Let me be that person to build it up and create the standards and kind of design what that looks like. And then from there, I was, totally content doing that kind of consulting work. And then the door opened up for me to go and become a learning and development director of another company. And it was just like, when the angels sing and the light shines down, that's what it felt like to move into that role. And what was really awesome about that specific opportunity was I again got to build a learning and development program from the ground up, but I was doing it for Salesforce consultants. So because I had been there, done that, lived a day in their shoes, then I was able to build something that they immediately found valuable and they felt heard. And then that was just like the smoothest transition to kind of launch me off into the learning and development world. And then I figured out that I could make it really transferable to anybody, not just people who were Salesforce consultants.
Awesome. I'm going to keep us going for like another 10, 15, if that's good with you guys. All right. I have a question from our audience. What is advice you wish somebody had given you on your journey? That comes from Melissa Davies.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul. I have one too.
But it's going to sound easy, and it's not, and I don't know if it would have worked for me, but it is believe in yourself more. But I struggled at first. I now do believe in myself, but I really struggled to hear that other people were cheering me on. But I did sort of listen. So I got there. I might come back with some other tips, but I think that's actually, I'm going to go self-compassion. Number one thing is self-compassion. The amount of times I beat myself up when things didn't go 100% to plan because I wasn't being realistic about these things. If I'd had self-compassion, that would have got me there a lot quicker.
Yeah, I would say passion is a byproduct. That's one that was really helpful for me to understand, is that you don't have to be, like I described, the doors opening, the angels singing, the light glowing, but that didn't happen right away. That took some time for me to figure out that I was really good at training and at learning and development. And then I figured I was passionate about it. So I know it's oftentimes people think that you have to figure out what you're passionate about and then chase that. But sometimes when you're building your career path and it's not going as linear as you expected, just try and take steps forward, and then the passion will come from there.
Yeah, that's a great one. For me, it was, I wish someone told me that your career doesn't need to make sense from the beginning, right? Because that would be just awesome, because from the beginning, I thought, I originally studied environmental engineering. I thought I'm going to be an environmental engineer. Well, guess what? I'm not, obviously, right? So, it's just, it doesn't need to make sense, while you're actually living it. And don't stop being curious and don't stop learning. It's an ongoing journey.
Do any of you still feel like you have imposter syndrome, or did you have imposter syndrome? Or did it ever go away, if you did?
Yes, and currently. So yeah, imposter syndrome is real. I've also heard it described as the gap between our own assessment of our skills and our perception of what people expect of us. So I find that description super interesting because it puts it all back on us. Like, we are the ones who are in control of that imposter syndrome, and we are the ones who can make it go away. So if you feel like there's a gap between your skills and what you think people are expecting of you, put more trust in what people are expecting of you, because they picked you for a reason and you're here for a reason. And so maybe that makes that gap a little bit smaller in the long run, but it is hard, and it's a daily battle for sure.
My thing about imposter syndrome is those people that have it shouldn't have it, and those people that don't have it most definitely should have it. For me, with my career, I've got exams, so that does prove that I've got a certain level of expertise. But do I feel confident in what I'm doing? No. Well, yeah, I do, but I think I can do a hell of a lot better. So that keeps me going.
Yeah, and for this, I would just leverage the community, Salesforce community, especially if you ever doubt yourself. I mean, reach out to someone, have a chat about it, right? I had so many wonderful people from community. When I doubt myself, I reached them out, and they just gave me a really valuable advice and made me confident. So yeah, friends, community, reach out.
I'm going to ask Rodrigo to unmute for this one because I wasn't sure I entirely understood it. But the question was, what represents your biggest FOMO thing / topic right now? Do you want to elaborate on that, Rodrigo?
Hi, hello. And well, just wondering to the panelists, right now, what is the topic you are like, I had to study this, I had to learn about this, because if not, I'm gonna lose clients, I'm gonna go away from trending, and that.
Yeah, I'm thinking on that one because there's a couple different angles. So AI is obviously a huge thing that you have to stay up to date on. But in my specific world of learning and development and change, I just did my ProSci certification. So that was a huge thing that I knew I needed. But when you get into any kind of an avenue of a career you're trying to pursue, it's like an onion. All of a sudden you peel back these layers and there's so many different things you can learn. Like getting into learning and development, I have to learn about Articulate 360, which is a totally different tool, and Rise, and all the different LMSs and all of that. And I could spend my days spiraling thinking I need to know everything about everything, or I can figure out what my niche is and then pare it down to be really good in certain areas. And so that's why I chose to go for ProSci certification. I don't do anything, if you've ever heard of Storyline, Articulate Storyline, I don't touch that. That's not for me. Somebody else can have that niche. So just, you could pursue a bunch of things, but figuring out what it is that you want to invest in and make yourself unique in.
Which is not always easy, right? I mean, I'm thinking about it from a perspective of leading the marketing practice, right? It's Salesforce, yeah, it's in the center, but there are other platforms. And oh my God, there are new platforms almost every month. I want to know all of them, but I cannot, literally, right? So yeah, to stay on top of something, it's actually really, really, really hard.
Abdul's just called us all out. The more we learn, the more we realize what we don't know.
Exactly. Yes.
And I think, Rodrigo, this wasn't really a question about career transitions, was it? This is always a problem. Like, there's always more stuff to know. And it's about, for me, it's about time boxing. How much time are you going to spend investing? How much time are you going to spend getting income? How much time are you going to spend looking after yourself and your other important aspects in your life? And it's just a question of playing around with the balancing, getting it completely wrong on occasion and resetting, and sometimes having it correct. Humans are systems. Things happen sometimes within our control and sometimes without our control. We apply self-compassion and then we get back to navigate towards the right place. There's one thing I have learned, because I did this to all the developers every time I wasn't a good administrator. I'd say, oh, this is only a 5-minute job. Because what I used to always do is think, I know my role is very complicated, lots of skills. That's easy. If I can describe it in a couple of sentences, that's going to be easy. I'm going to a very bad place to pay for my sins at some point, because everyone's role is complicated. And so it's having that different perspective and understanding that, but that doesn't answer the question of fear. I leave the fear of missing out. Actually, I'll tell you what, because I know from people present, I'm going to say on this call, that what you see on LinkedIn, and this absolutely includes me, I went through a period of time whereas I went to 5 conferences or something, I'm making the number up, maybe it's 5. And I was going to all the conferences and people say, oh yeah, you're really engaged, you're really going to all the conferences this year. Yeah, because I was going through a divorce and I was homeless. So there was a very nice thing that I could get to all the conferences because ex-husband was contributing to my travel money while we sorted everything out because he'd rather have the space for himself. And that was fine. You know, it was a fairly amicable thing, these things go. But there's what people present on social media. It's only what they choose to present on social media. What you're not seeing is all the other part of the story. So maybe that's food for thought.
We just had another question come in that is actually one I was going to ask anyway, so it's a good time for it. For someone who feels burned out, stuck, or quietly curious about what else is possible, what is one low-risk step they can take to explore without blowing up their career?
Oh, I can start with that one. Side projects, you know, or being part of the community involvement in any kind of a type, saying yes to cross-functional work before actually, you know, changing the roles, volunteer, and you know, try to get outside of your comfort zone as well. I certainly did, and it paid off. So yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah, I also encourage getting into some different community groups, because you're going to hear stories of what people who are doing that work right now, what they experience day to day, what are the things that they're struggling with, what are their successes. And so it's almost like you get a little preview window into what your day might look like. And so that has been hugely helpful for me. I've joined a bunch of different community groups that are surrounded around people, operations, learning and development, change. And that's helped me figure out my niche, where I'm seeing a lot of people going in certain directions. And I realized there's a gap over here that I could fill. So taking that window into somebody else's life, kind of like a shadowing without having to get, you know, sign up to do a professional shadowing opportunity, it gets you exposure.
Cool. So I'll just do the add-on that you've already come to this community group today. You proved that you can go into these spaces. And you prove that, you know, you can choose to say something, not say something. But it's also, I remember going to my first user group, and I went because I was quite socially awkward at the time. People wouldn't recognize me now from then. It was a zero risk activity. I went because it's like, if this is hell on earth, no one's going to know me. I can go away, and that'll just be that. And it would have been one wasted evening. I'm still in contact with a few of the people that I first met in that group over 10 years ago. It's been amazing. It's been transformative. Something's going to change. The trouble is you can't identify what, so you have to take the risk. And there may be some duds along the route, but what have you really lost? One evening? You know, it's and you'll learn something about it, whether it's, yeah, I'm thinking of music. Whether you go to a genre of music and it's like, that is the world's worst, I never ever want to hear that again. You've learned something. Whether something works or doesn't work, you still learn something. But those were great suggestions. I've got nothing to add to the actual suggestions themselves.
Well, I mean, this has been great. I think it's we have to start making moves in whatever directions, and not all the directions are necessarily going to be good or bad, but we will base it on vibes. You know, if it feels like it fits, or if it feels attainable, then we keep moving that direction. If it feels like a wrong turn, then it's a wrong turn. It doesn't matter. I've got a music business degree, and hey, look at where I'm at now. And you know, talking to other folks so that we get ourselves educated on what the possibilities are as far as you know, different roles, or how we might move into these spaces is a good low risk move too, is what it sounds like. I'm going to ask one last thing, because I think this one's a little bit more concrete. How did you explain your career shift in an interview? Or if you've had to do any interviewing, or if you're doing any networking? Because I know for me, like I'm like Salesforce as a lifestyle right now. If you look at my LinkedIn, like people will be like, you're the Salesforce person. Like, that's going to be tough for me if I'm like all of a sudden applying to that HubSpot job, or I'm applying to some, you know, I don't know, tech delivery job. Sorry, Tanya. So how did you explain the shift when Salesforce wasn't the primary thing you were doing in your role?
Yeah, I can share a little bit there. So oftentimes when I'm doing interviews for potential contracts, freelance work, they often see how much Salesforce experience I have. And they say, oh, you're a tech trainer. And I say, that is part of the experience that I've gained. That has been the majority of the opportunities that I have been able to do. But I can apply that same set of skills to a variety of areas. I've also done medical device. So I try to like pull out some other little pieces of my experience along the way, talking about the fitness teaching, talking about the fifth graders that I taught, talking about the medical device pieces. So not denying that that's my experience, but just kind of flipping the script on it to say, yes, that's one part of my history and something that I really enjoyed. And I can equally enjoy what we're talking about as well.
I can elaborate on that one. I think I talk about more than experience in the platform, about the principle and processes and the curiosity and also learning, and the kind of problems that I wanted to solve. And yeah, at the beginning, was not really confident because you're moving from one kind of area to another one. But more you actually think about it, the processes are the same, and this is where we're actually taking the business analyst hat with us. Earlier on, there was like a question, if you ever lose your BA identity. I haven't, because all the principles that I learned as a BA are still with me, even if I'm not BA anymore. So yeah, it depends how you actually put it into the principles and processes, rather than it's about the platform, what platform, unless you're asking for a developer's role, that's a different stuff. But yeah.
I know this doesn't always work, but I'm still going to say it. Brutal honesty. For instance, I've been volunteering for 2 years, hosting some support groups and just doing the tech side of it. And I just said, look, I've been doing it for 2 years. It's getting samey for me. I think I've now documented it so anyone else can stand in and do it. So I think there's some other challenges that I want to pursue. So I think it's time. The problem is society doesn't accept brutal honesty. That we will have to put a spin on it. And yeah, I'd like us all to be a little bit more honest with each other, but it's not always possible. So that's the truth. But when I'm speaking, because for this job that I was doing, I was speaking to other ADHDers, they got it, they knew it. They said, oh yeah, that's absolutely fine. You've been doing it 2 years, you're bored. It needs to be sparkly for you, got it. But I'd say the same actually safe space exists in the Salesforce ecosystem when you're in a community group. Not when you're in a job interview, but when you're fishing around for jobs, you can indicate what's not working for you. They can go, nah, that company's exactly the same. Or no, that's like the difference between consultancy and working at an end client. There is a difference in culture between those two different things. So within a safe space, there are places within that safe space you can have the conversation, and there's some places where you have to mask and put a bullshit answer to it, and it's about knowing when you can navigate, but also when you can be honest, remembering that you can unmask and be honest and experiment and see what happens.
That's excellent advice. All of you, thank you. Let me hold on. I've got I prepared a slide for this. Thank you to our wonderful panelists, Paul, Kristyna, and Ashley, for sharing your experiences. I know I've learned a lot, and I think it validates some of my, my feelings on some of this. Folks are asking about how do they find their niche, but I think a lot of it does come to, find where your passion is, and sometimes you move into the wrong direction, and sometimes you need to speak to a few people so you learn about what's out there. But all of your experiences are treasures for this group, and I think particularly now in this AI age, this corporate uncertainty age, it's important that we realize that we are not stuck. We're never stuck. We just have to keep moving and keep learning about ourselves and seeing where our careers go. So thank you all for sharing your experiences. I did curate some additional comments from folks that either applied or just offered some advice to our group. So I actually threw these all into a LinkedIn post. So if folks can't read them now, know that they are on LinkedIn if you look me up. But thank you so much, everybody who either applied or was on our panel, and for sharing your background. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to our community. But I think there is a need for all of us. Our BA skills are not lost. And extra thank you to Kristyna for bringing it back to the actual topic of the panel, which is have BA skills will travel. So thank you for bringing it back to those BA skills for me. On that note, I forgot my slide that says, hey, we're about to transition into Salesforce BA news. Before we transition, though, panelists, I want to give you one final run through. Is there anything else that you want to share that you did not get an opportunity to share before I transition to news?
I do, actually, and it's a massive thank you, Vanessa and Pei, for actually organizing this, because I think this is awesome. A lot of people hopefully will benefit from this talk, and yeah, keep doing what you do, guys. It's amazing. That's why I love this community.
No, I've just really appreciated being here, and this is my kind of. I think we brought up networking earlier, and this is for the shy types out there. It's not the networking in the first year that counts. It's networking in the third and fourth year. But the only way you get to that third and fourth year is to do the first year. As I said, the people that I know are friends that have given advice. They know other people. We've all been and gone and shared each other's journeys. So it doesn't matter who you meet, because well, it does matter who you meet. You navigate to the people that you want to stay in contact with, 100%. But it's worth it. It requires energy, but it does pay off. And pay off sounds so mercurial. They'll also get benefit from knowing you. So F that, F whatever messages you're saying yourself, they'll get benefit from knowing you as well. Everyone, like, you've all got a rich life experiences. You're all doing things, interesting things on the Salesforce platform. Or I think there's still a few people learning about it. But then you've got fresh ideas. So everyone's got something to add, and I wish you all well with your journeys. But particularly, I'm going to say thank you to Vanessa and Pei, because this topic was really like, oh yeah, I want to be on this topic. This is a fun topic. As a BA, this is a fun topic to have to think of what the possibilities are. That's what we need to do as BAs.
I didn't butt in very much, but I was busy listening, collating, and posting about it. It's I was just thinking how it moved into like life questions like burnout and imposter syndrome, and how do we take low risk, how do we move into new areas and not risk our careers. A lot of questions that I think everyone would ask, not just business analysts. So I really thought it was a great conversation. Thank you, panelists.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. I agree with Paul about everybody has a story. Remember that. And also, these are the best kinds of conversations. These are the conversations about people. And that's the whole point of our existence, is community and other people. So I invite these conversations. I get excited about them. Thank you, Vanessa and Pei, for making this happen.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And on that note, we're going to start moving into some badass BA news, and then we'll go into unrecorded snowman races. Apologies in advance, YouTube, that you won't be invited to our snowman races. You're just going to have to attend. All right, my first bit of news. Earn your exam while it's still free, but it's the last time I have this slide, folks. I know I've had this slide for like 12 sessions now. It's really not that difficult to apply, even though it was my first time doing a non-criterion thing. I did it. If you want to take the exam with me, I'm taking it December 29th. We can either fail together or get a discount together if we want to take a positive spin on it. Or maybe we'll pass and then we can call ourselves Agent Force Specialists, beep, beep. All right, calls for speakers. We have Nonprofit Dreaming coming up in March. London's calling. The call for speakers came out, so you can apply for there on February 1st. I'm going to guess that Paul might be there, so maybe Kristyna. So, and certainly Pay will be there. So if you guys want to go apply for London's Calling. Also, it is Todd Halfpenny's birthday today, so drop him a message and wish him a happy birthday. Folks on YouTube, it definitely won't be his birthday by the time that happens, but save it for next year or this year, depending on when I get this video uploaded. We've got, I'm going to, anybody speak German? Wir sind
Ohana.
Thank you. in Berlin, if you want to apply there. Buckeye Dreamin' in Columbus, Ohio, and Northeast Dreamin'. They are starting early. But that's one actually I would really like to go to because it's long been on my list as a New Yorker. Do you want to speak? What's that?
Very one. True North Dreaming is actually on the same day as we're in Ohana. So I've submitted to go to Toronto. So let's see if I get picked.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Maybe I might have to go to Toronto. All right. Or if you want to speak to this group, we are currently recruiting for folks to speak on business analyst, Salesforce Business Analyst, or whatever adjacent topics. We actually have a whole list of topics that, so if you are actually filling out this form, you'll see the topics that we generally like to focus on. But please feel free to apply. We love having new speakers here. I love promoting folks that want to talk about Salesforce Business Analyst and just business analyst topics, because I think all projects are better when they are built on a foundation of business analysis. And on that note, I'm going to say peace out to the YouTube crowd. And a final thank you to our panelists before we go unrecorded, and then we can, I don't know, let our hair down. So sorry, YouTube. Catch you later, probably 2026 when I upload this. Bye.